Hello everyone, welcome to the garden. This is episode 3 out of 4 in our how-to series. We've already touched on how to jump, how to corner, and a lot of you guys were interested how to whip. So this video is completely dedicated on how to do whips. We've got the trail bike, we've got the jump bike, slightly different techniques. I'm just going to show you how I like to do whips on them. Obviously there's millions of different types of whips you can do, but we'll just touch on a few and hopefully you guys can learn whips yourself. This how-to series is made possible by Squarespace, the all-in-one platform to build a beautiful online presence and grow your business. So we're going to start off on my hardtail dirt jump bike because it's a bit lighter and easier to whip, and maybe you can see what's going on a bit better. To be honest, the bigger the jump is actually, the easier it is to whip. There's a few reasons for that. The wind, as you're going forward, actually pushes the bike back straight again, so the bigger the jump, the easier it is to get your whips back, so you can throw them harder. So we're here on the last jump in the garden, which is a real nice poppy, 2.5 meters tall takeoff, 5 meter gap for a nice amount of airtime. Obviously, the more airtime you got, the more time you got to whip and play with the bike. So yeah, we'll start off with the dirt jump bike and then we'll try some on the trail bike later. So I'll just hit the jump, do a few warm-ups and then start to do a bit of a whip. Obviously a whip, something you can work up to. You don't have to do the biggest one straight away. So yeah, I'll just do a few. Alright, so I've warmed up, done a few whips there, so let's break it down and try and explain what's going on, even though it is quite hard to explain. First thing I'm going to show you, we've actually got wet tyres that kind of can show you part of the technique here. So I whip, turning the bike to the left is my preferred way. Usually it's whatever way you're better at turning at, you're better at whipping, but that's not always the case. So I like whipping left, I like turning left. So I come in further to left than usual and I aim the bike towards the top right of the ramp and start carving an arc up the takeoff. Quite cool actually, you can see it really clearly from here. Normally I'd be going straight up the middle for the jump, but I start out here on the left and then go diagonally across to the top corner and then start carving, not quite that much, and start carving up, and that gives you the turn. So you want to keep your body weight over the middle, but your bike kind of starting to turn, because if you turn with the bike, you'll start doing a 360 and you'll land sideways. So keeping your body weight neutral, or even slightly turning into the whip, means you can bring the whip back and not land completely sideways. As I said, we're going to start over towards the left. We're going to pump into the takeoff, push pretty hard and get more boost, because the more airtime, the more whip we can get. And as we come to the top, when we're finishing this carve to the left, we're going to spring up with our hands and legs, but our hands and arms are going to go to the left and our feet are going to push out to the right, and kind of our body is going to twist out to the right to stop us completely rotating the way that the bike wants us to. So you're kind of fighting against the bike. The bike wants to go one way and you want to turn your body to counter it in the opposite direction. Up in the air, you're kind of going to want to be in this weird sort of position here with your, like I said, the bars. So if I'm facing that way on the jump, the bars are going to be over there to the left because we pushed the bike out, and we want to use our hips and body and head almost to keep going straight to make sure we don't spin around. At that point, if your body's looking the right way, you should be able to kind of bring the bike, you relax your legs and arms, and it should want to come straight again from the wheels spinning. So yeah, that's one other tip. You don't want to pull your brake, because once you pull the brake, the wheels stop spinning, and that kind of centrifugal force helps you to come back straight. And that force should kind of bring the bike back. You can give it a little help by tucking your feet back up in and turning your arms straight again, and then just kind of land as you normally would. You're probably going to be a bit sideways, but that's fine as long as you don't break your wheel or crash. So these are all pretty subtle moves. You don't want to be doing anything too violent off the takeoff, because that's probably going to spin you too much and make you crash. But let's recap quickly. So I come in from the side, point diagonally sort of off the top of the ramp, start to carve, and then by the time the bike's left, I really want to be starting to bring the bike round using the carve that I've done on the takeoff and countering with my body weight the opposite direction. You should be super relaxed in the air, not really forcing anything around, and the bike, if you've done it right, should want to kind of come straight back with the centrifugal force of the wheels. You can give it a little help back. Sometimes I find it easier to tweak the bar into the turn, which weirdly brings it back again. And then yeah, be nice and strong for landing, because you're probably going to be sideways. And there you go. dirt jump whips. Whips are kind of like a snowflake, no two are the same, so everyone's technique is different, and even your own whips, they usually come out different every time, which is why whips are so fun and cool. But once you've got the basics, you can start doing the other way, your uncomfortable way. You can start tweaking the bars down, tweaking the bars up, bending your knees, and it all kind of affects the bike in different ways. So you can really add your own style onto it. There's literally a million different ways you can do a whip, but they all come from the same basic technique. Wow. There's also quite a cool one you can do if you do like an opposite whip and then a regular table. It's kind of, I don't know, just a cool shape. I'll show you. So yeah, after that last fun shape, that reminded me, everyone actually asked last week if we could do a more in-depth how to tabletop. It's one of my favourite tricks, but it's kind of a shape as well, so it kind of goes hand in hand with a whip. But first, a quick message from today's sponsor, Squarespace.
Alright, here we go. Squarespace is designed for any purpose. Every template design supports all major template types, including pages, galleries, blogs, commerce, calendars, and more. Buying a domain from Squarespace is simple because, there are no hidden fees or price hikes. There are over 200 top-level domains so you can find the perfect name for your website. Choose a URL that ends in .com, .net, .org, or get even more specific with one like .art.
Quick lap of the small line now. You can create a community on your Squarespace website with a fully integrated commenting system that supports a threaded comments, replies, and likes. Let's finish things off with a nice 360 here. There we go. So head to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, use the link below to get 10% off your first website or domain. So yeah, I'll try a few now, and then I'll try and explain how I do tabletops. So, tabletops, kind of you start them off pretty similar to the whip actually. I tabletop my bike out to the right, kind of the same way. I whip leaning to the left is the way I prefer. So I start off left again and kind of point once again over to the top right, because if you make the jump a bit of a hip, you're already leaning a little bit, maybe 10 degrees, so it gets you an extra 10 degrees on the end of your tabletop, so it just sort of helps you out there. But this time, whereas with the whip we turned our bars off the takeoff, this time we're still going to kind of lean in, drop our shoulder a little bit, but this time, it's kind of a good way to practice actually. You can do it either lying on your back or stood up. I try and get my right grip under my left armpit, and at the same time, my knee into the frame to bend in that way. And that's the kind of shape you want to come with. It feels super unnatural on the floor, but when the bike's all weightless, it actually folds in really nice. The most important things to remember are actually, so you want to get your right hand and push it underneath your left armpit, but you don't want to be gripping too tight onto that because obviously it won't go in there. You kind of want to slip your hand around the bar as you're folding it in like that. It kind of does it quite naturally. Oh yeah, you don't want to get caught in there. It kind of does it quite naturally as it folds under there, and you kind of push it rather than pull it. And secondly, to take all the weight off of your feet. If you actually look at some of the tables, I think both my feet are actually completely off the bike. They're kind of just sort of floating around the pedal area because you kind of only use your knees, you don't use your feet to do anything. Try and get that front wheel as close to your shoulder as you can, and then there's actually nothing you do to get out of it. You just bring your shoulders back, put your feet back on the pedals. It's actually quite simple to ride away. You probably, because you carved off the takeoff a little bit, you'll probably be leaning in a little bit, so just be careful when you land. Again, like earlier, nothing too violent, all quite smooth moves, and if you get it all right, it should fold into place quite nicely. So most important things, slightly lean in, try and make the jump a bit of a hip, get that right hand under the left armpit and twist your knee and bend it in towards the frame and the seat. There you go, tabletops. And then tabletop's another cool trick that obviously you could add it into a 360 or do it as a little bit of a combination move. So I actually forgot to say, if you've got a hip, you don't even need to try and make your straight jump into more of a hip. So just practice on that because you're already leant in. It's much easier to get your table flat. And once you can do it good, you can actually get your table even past flat, which is cool. So finally, we're on the trail bike, just to try out a few different whips. Because the bike's a bit heavier and a bit more sluggish, you actually kind of whip it slightly differently. You can do the same pullback whip, dirt jump style. But obviously the bike's a lot heavier and slower, so it's kind of a lot harder, you need a lot bigger jump. So there's a few other whips you can do on a trail bike which feel really cool, feels a bit more motocrossy. One of my favourites is more kind of like a down table-y kind of whip thing, where the bike kind of goes flat over like that, and instead of whipping the back out, you kind of just lean it over like that. It's a bit like a tabletop, a bit like a whip, kind of halfway in between. Again, same as always, we're going to be starting off over the left-hand side of the lip, carving over towards the right, but turning as we go. Because the bike's a lot heavier than the jump bikes, these you can be a lot more violent and you can lean a lot more aggressively than with the jump bike, because the heavy wheels and the heavy bike are going to help you to stay straight, so you've got to put a bit more oomph into it. So as you're carving at the end of the takeoff, basically continue the carve of the front wheel and push it downwards, and at the same time, like the tabletop, bend your knee in towards the frame. You don't want to lean in completely with your weight. You kind of want to drop almost your right shoulder a little bit to stop you from spinning, doing a 360 or falling over, to keep your body weight kind of straight up and over the bike. With your hands, you almost barely want to be holding on. You don't want to be forcing it because you've kind of done all the work off the takeoff, and now the bike should be pretty light, but it doesn't take much force. And the back of the bike should sort of come up around into a kind of whip shape. You should bend your legs, bring the bars straight back around again, and then come in for a landing. So it is fun on steep jumps like that, but this whip actually makes a bit more sense on more bike parky, kind of longer jumps that you're cutting through the air with the front wheel. Feels really cool. Like this shark fin here, should be really good jump to do something like that on. So if you remember, it's actually very similar technique to the scrub technique that we taught you in the how to jump video, except the main difference here is we're not trying to get as low as we can and soak up the takeoff. We're using the takeoff to bounce us, and then even using the takeoff to kind of flick the bike up in the air, but very similar techniques. Quick recap on that one. Similar to all the other whips, you come in a bit diagonally, and instead of pulling the bars up and across like on the first whip, you're going to push the bars downwards into sort of the down table position, bend your knees up, bring your feet up, and the bike should kind of float around, turn the bars back straight again, twist your body straight, and there you go. There's whips. Yeah, like I said, there's literally a million different kind of whips you can do. Everyone's different, and even your own whips are different every time. I think none of them have been the same today, but that's why they're so good. Hopefully you guys learned a thing or two, and hopefully you can go and try some whips at the bike park, at the jumps, and have some fun with it. Next episode, we are teaching you some basic tricks here at the dirt jump, so make sure you check that one out. Thanks for watching, guys. See you on the next one.